Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville on this Monday afternoon. I hope you're ready to enjoy a good bit of basketball. I'm noticing we may have an issue on our Facebook stream, which is odd. It should be receiving us just fine. We're going to hit reload, as they say, and hopefully that one jumps in for us. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Lots of ways you can interact with us, and we hope you'll take advantage of those opportunities. Just lost our easy chance to interact with you on Facebook. We will find a backup way to do that. Of course, WBCA, NABC, proud supporters of the Hoopsville show. This is the WBCA NABC studios. Of course, presented by D3Hoops.com as well. Of course, we didn't air on Sunday evening thanks to the fact that we were in Philadelphia at the Palestra for the Centennial Day there. And I probably can speak for most of us who were there, Ryan, Scott, and Gordon Mann and myself, in saying it was a wonderful event. Better than I think I expected. I knew we would see some competitive basketball to some degree. You hope you don't get any duds. You always hope that for a tournament. At the same time, we also hope that we would get, a nice crowd to show up and whatnot. And I think we did, for the most part, until I think the last game of the night, we got a pretty good crowd on hand to see the games. Excuse me. Got a cold. Got a cold much of the year. And we got a good crowd. The last game, it started later. It was scheduled for 7:30. I think a lot of us thought it would. But at the same time, we didn't expect it to go as late as it did because of the double overtime game in game number 4. But again, it's a Sunday evening, even though it's right before the holiday. I think it's a little bit hard to expect suddenly we're going to get a lot of people there. But we'll talk more about that in a bit. In the meantime, of course, top 25s are due out later today. I am still trying to look through my ballot. I've got my data information. I've got my old ballot. Saw at least one top 25 team this weekend. Actually, I saw 2, if you count the women. Though I don't vote on the women's side. I got a chance to see Muhlenberg women's basketball. I also got to see York men's basketball. Top 25s usually come out around 5 or 6 in the evening Eastern time. There's going to be a slight delay today. Without going behind the scenes, there was just a snafu. So there's going to be a slight delay. Ballots are due later this evening now from our voters. So you're going to have to wait until later tonight until they come out, including myself. I got to get my top 25 done. But, of course, once again, you have craziness galore across the top 25, to say the least. And it's something that is fun. It also gets somewhat old as you start to lose your mind. To some degree. Hold on a second. I know a lot of people were impressed with Wittenberg. I certainly was have been impressed with Wittenberg. Here it is. Here we go. So we already knew Augustana had lost. Whitworth lost to Whitman. We knew that. Williams lost to Tufts on Friday. We'll talk more about Williams later in the show. River Falls lost to Oshkosh. Now, I had River Falls higher than Oshkosh. I had just flipped them from the week before. So imagine my ballot 2 weeks ago. I had Oshkosh 4th and I had River Falls 7th. Last week I had River Falls 5th and I had Oshkosh 10th behind Whitewater at 9. Now Oshkosh has beaten River Falls. You're right back into the square. This gets complicated. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with them. Swarthmore lost on on Saturday. The whole week's a little bit confusing. Saturday to Franklin and Marshall. Of course, Franklin and Marshall had lost to Muhlenberg back on Tuesday. And so the Centennial, a little bit chaotic. Swarthmore and Franklin and Marshall are tied now atop the conference. They've got one more coming. That game will be at Swarthmore. Don't know what to make of that. I know Ryan's going to make a claim here on Swarthmore later in the show. We'll discuss it. But, Swarthmore now with their second loss of the season. There are other losses coming to York. I'm having trouble figuring out what to make of the Franklin and Marshall loss. We will figure that out. By the way, I believe Glenn Robinson wasn't at that game either, though it was a home game. I guess that injury a little bit more significant. I think he tried to, quote-unquote, play through it and was unable. Wesleyan lost to Hamilton. Hamilton, the big story right now. We plan on getting Hamilton on the show soon. I promise you. We have an East region coming up, and I think we'll probably go with them on Thursday. We're still working on those details to be sure. But I think that's where we're going to head, as Hamilton beat Wesleyan and then went on to beat Connecticut College 102-77. So it looks like Hamilton's having the season that they've teased us with in years past. They may be finally putting it together. Ohio Wesleyan lost to Hiram. We mentioned that. At least they came back against Allegheny, and I think maybe sent a message. They beat them 110-48. That's not a Mike DeWitt type of score normally. Wartburg lost late, was it Friday night, against Simpson. So Wartburg kind of is going to have some people kind of hemming and hawing. We mentioned Franklin and Marshall lost to Muhlenberg, beat Washington College in a game that Washington College was at least competitive in. We'll talk more about the Shoremen in a bit. But Swarthmore then again defeated Swarthmore. And Baldwin Wallace, we mentioned on Thursday's show, took the loss to Ohio Northern. New Jersey City lost to Ramapo on the road in overtime. I think it was Sam Toney scored 42 points, first time since the 80s or 90s that somebody at New Jersey City has scored that many points in a game, and apparently the most points scored in a road game by New Jersey City. Here's my issue here. I know that playing at Ramapo is difficult. I know winning, especially a conference game at Ramapo, is difficult. I get all of that. But Ramapo was ripe for the taking, if that makes any sense. Now, New Jersey City got a transfer. We mentioned that on Thursday's show. He apparently didn't play. He immediately got the flu. Maybe he doesn't want to transfer next time. But he got the flu and wasn't able to play. I don't know if that's a determining factor. Now, I was told one of the other starter, or a starter, I should say, didn't play as well. Again, hard to say. But in my opinion, if you're going to put a stake and put a claim on the conference, and you're going to make a claim in the top 25, and you're going to make a claim that the Atlantic, and you're one of the best teams in the Atlantic, I think you need to win that game. And the reason I say I think you need to win that game is a split is understandable, but I feel like Ramapo was ripe for the taking. If this was a Ramapo team that hadn't at one point lost 3 out of 4, I wouldn't have had the same opinion. But I feel like New Jersey City couldn't do what TCNJ did, and TCNJ did defeat Ramapo. Now, granted, at TCNJ, and I get the differences there. But the New Jersey City or the New Jersey Athletic Conference keeps talking about how tough it is to play, and I get that. But if one team is going to rise up and stake a claim to what is going on in that conference and say that they are the best and say that they're going to be a national threat, then you need to win those games. You need to go into a Ramapo and prove that Ramapo is beatable at home. Now you're going to have to win the game at home in this rematch between Ramapo and New Jersey City to at least keep things even. If you lose that one at home now, the conversation has completely flipped around, and either Ramapo has finally figured things out and is the better team by far, or the New Jersey Athletic Conference again has this lack of being able to get over the hump. I don't know. I mean, we're reading a lot into it, I realize. But I just felt, especially with Tony going for 42, that was a game New Jersey City had to win. And they had them. They had the opportunity. And I feel like a loss doesn't do enough. There are moral losses. I get that, just like there are moral victories. I just feel like New Jersey City missed a prime opportunity to prove skeptics wrong, to prove just how good they are. Yes, you've proven the New Jersey Athletic Conference is competitive. We're used to that. That's nothing new for us. I just don't think I think we missed out on the other opportunities that came with it, if that makes any sense. I know that's a little hard. I'm not really sure how I want to state what I'm saying. But that's kind of how I feel. So, interesting development there in that. Don't know what to make of it. We'll certainly keep an eye on that conference, to say the least. In the meantime, we keep going down through the men's top 25, and these are results that everybody's got to kind of keep in mind this week. Platteville lost to River Falls. We mentioned that on Thursday's show. That certainly added a wrinkle. I had gotten Platteville onto my top 25. Now they lost to a higher-ranked team, not surprisingly. The game was close, not surprising. They got past La Crosse, though, in tight fashion. It's going to get interesting in the WIAC. I don't know if I can really really keep 4 teams on my ballot from the WIAC. I really don't know if I can keep 4 teams from the NESCAC, but we'll get to that later. St. Norbert lost to Monmouth. I'll be honest. It's going to sound harsh, and I apologize how it's going to come across. But I've been looking for an excuse to do something with St. Norbert. I've got them in the 18 hole. I've liked what they've done. I also don't like what they've done. I feel like they're a good team. They've got some wins I like, but they've also got some losses, especially at home, that are frustrating me. This feels like a loss that I can do something with. It was on the road in overtime. If they're as good as they are, they don't. Again, same conversation we just had with New Jersey City. They don't lose to Monmouth. And so I think that's going to be the excuse. I've had a week or two here. Now they're 11-3 now. Well, 11-3 with that loss, and then they went on to they beat Illinois College earlier, so they're 12-3. I just don't think they're a top 25 squad. I had them at 21. They floated up to 18, to be honest. I liked them at 21. They floated at 18 because of all the other movement I had in the ballot. But I'm ready. I think I'll be dropping the Knights at this point. That loss that now is a culmination of issues that I've had with my argument. Juniata actually had a heck of a game midweek with Goucher. We kind of breezed over that 64-53, but then they lost at Drew 75-74. I am not voting for Juniata, but that's now 2 losses in 2 weeks. I do feel Juniata has been a little bit overrated. They haven't had a resume, in my opinion. You remember, I'm not the one who's voting for Lycoming. I just now recently started voting for Whitworth. I just recently started voting for who was it? Swarthmore. I just don't feel Juniata had as strong a resume as even those 2 teams. And now I think we're starting to see that. Drew's a good squad. I like Drew. I saw them last week. I think they've got some good pieces. But if Juniata, and this is that same conversation again, if Juniata is as good as other top 25 voters feel, and their top 25 previous voting had indicated, they're now receiving votes, they win that game. I understand it's at True, but that's the challenge here. You can't just rely on your home schedule. You've got to win your games on the road to best position yourself. Skidmore, that's another team's going to come out of my top 25. I really like what Skidmore has for pieces, but apparently they're dealing with injuries, which I feel like is the same conversation we have every point at this point in the season with Skidmore. They're dealing with injuries, and no one else is there to step up, I guess, or they don't know how to handle the injuries. Skidmore loses twice last week, once to Vassar, then they beat Rochester Tech, then they lost to Hobart. Not good. Skidmore's now 9-4, not good. You basically have won about 2/3 of your games. Skidmore's going to come out of my top 25 for sure. Christopher Newport, I saw them play at York. I was actually kind of impressed with Christopher Newport for a couple of reasons. One, that fight is still there. They're still playing really darn good basketball. They are without Marcus Carter. McFadden, though, is playing. Though, to be honest with you, I didn't notice him. That's going to be a little bit weird to say, but I didn't notice McFadden that much. I don't know why. I don't have the final box in front of me. I have the one from 3 minutes left to go in the game, and McFarland had 7 points on 2 of 14 shooting. He had 2 rebounds. He had no assists. He had a block and a steal. Nothing about McFarland blew me away. Now, Christopher Newport had to play most of the game with Femi, or most of the second half with Femi with 4 fouls, but he was 0 for 2. He's more about leading and distributing, but he had 1 assist. Luther Gibbs and Spencer Martin and Clutch Ellis, and off the bench, Savante Chappell, who was 6 of 8, granted most of that only in the first half. York did a really nice job adjusting to him. Those guys stood out to me more than the guys I expected to, and that's McFarland and Femi. So I like the fight Christopher Newport had. I just don't think they're right now built to be a real threat. They may split the season with York. Again, to the conversation I just had in New Jersey City, York and Christopher Newport will play the last game of the season. York's got to win that game at Christopher Newport to make a statement. I don't think they're going to need to win that game to hold on to the conference top seed and win the regular season, barring nothing crazy happens between now and then, the next, 5 weeks? However, they've got to win that game at Christopher Newport. They just ended a 9-game losing streak to Christopher Newport with this win on Saturday. If they are truly as good as they are, and we'll talk probably more about them coming up with Ryan in the end of the show with our top 25 segment. If York is as good as they are, they need to win that game now at Christopher Newport. Good start. Now they need to finish. But Christopher Newport, I at least was impressed with. They didn't take as far a step back as I thought they would. That said, where was McFarland? Where was Femi? They're relying now on new guys, which is good. They're showing some depth. They're showing some weapons. But if, for example, one of those weapons in Chappell can go out there and go 6 of 8 in the first half, rack up 12 points and a rebound. And by the way, 1 rebound, to be honest with you, isn't that good because he's a pretty solid player in the sense of size. He can't go and have an 0 for a second half. Now, he has 11 minutes here, and I will admit that I saw Christopher Newport adjust a little bit, and I didn't see him on the floor as much. I also don't think I saw him on the floor as much because he wasn't contributing as much in that second half. And again, that could be York's change of plans. It could have been Christopher Newport's change of plans trying to get into a game that they yo-yoed. They had a nice start to the second half and kind of put York on its back foot. Looked like they could get past York on the score, and then York kind of put their foot down after a timeout, and it yo-yoed from there. You just kind of saw it constantly. So interesting from Christopher Newport, but no reason to vote for him at this point. Worcester lost to Wittenberg by 11. That game speaks more about Wittenberg. I've got Wittenberg pretty high, and I haven't run into anybody yet who has seen them play who doesn't like what they see. I think Wittenberg has somebody said it on the board, something I had indicated on Thursday's show when we talked to their head coach, Matt Croce. It didn't feel like this was supposed to be the year. It felt like they were building towards maybe next year or the following year, and that's a little hard to say in college basketball, I realize, 2 years out especially. And to have a target year is certainly hard. But it didn't feel like this team was ready for Showtime this season, but that's where they were headed. And I think when in reality what we found out is they're ready for Showtime now. Now, they've still got Ohio Wesleyan ahead of them on the schedule. I'm curious on how Ohio Wesleyan will be up for that game. But Wittenberg at least knocking off Worcester is a good sign, and that game was at Worcester. So that's huge for Wittenberg. There's that point I'm making. They went and won the game they needed to on the road. Granted, with Ohio Wesleyan still to come. So hats off to Wittenberg. And again, that's not a statement on Worcester. I'm not voting for Worcester. If I was going to put Worcester into my top 25 ballot last week, I was going to have to add 3 other teams, and I didn't have that kind of space. Because I had results against common opponents that it wasn't going to allow it to happen. And same with Emory and some others. It just got convoluted. Albright lost twice. Lost to Lycoming, okay. Then lost to Messiah in triple overtime, 101-100. I think the truth of Albright is starting to be revealed, as it were. Augsburg lost twice. They beat St. Thomas, which was great, but then lost to Bethel and St. John's. Okay, they'd gone 2-1 and lost to St. John's. I like Augsburg, and I saw them in person. I like what I saw. And I'm not knocking Bethel here. Again, this is just one of those where if you need, you've got to get certain wins to stay in certain positions, and I think they needed to win that game against Bethel. Buena Vista looked like they were having a good season. Maybe it's Loris in the IAAC. I told you the IAAC race was going to be crazy this year. I've said it multiple times on this show. Buena Vista brought Nebraska Wesleyan back to reality with their handing the Pioneers their first loss of the season. Buena Vista looked like they were in tremendous shape, and then they lose to Loris. Well, Loris also beat Nebraska Wesleyan earlier this week. So Loris had a tremendous week with a 97-87 overtime win over against Nebraska Wesleyan and an 82-80 win over Buena Vista. That IAAC race is fascinating. The problem is they're going to eat themselves a little bit here, and they're probably only going to get one team into the NCAA tournament. But that one team is going to be darn good, and Wartburg showed that last year. So now we're talking Wartburg, now we're talking Buena Vista, now we're talking Loris, and we're talking Nebraska Wesleyan. When's the last time we had 4 teams we were talking about in the IAAC? Again, they're going to eat themselves a little bit. Maybe they can get a second one out, but if there's too much of that, it's only going to be one. But again, Wartburg came from, what was it, the 6th seed in that conference tournament, won 3 road games to get the automatic qualifier, which is unheard of. Then went in the NCAA tournament and knocked off 2 behemoths in the first 2 rounds, including Benedictine and the home team River Falls. We know the IAC can probably go do something. It's just a matter of surviving their own conference, and that's why I think their conference race is going to be fascinating. Tufts lost to Middlebury, no big deal, but the problem is now they've lost. They come off the win with Williams with a loss to Middlebury, which only makes the NESCAC race a lot more confusing. And Lebanon Valley also receiving votes, lost to Arcadia, for whatever that means to anybody out there. Women's side, a little quieter, as it normally is. That said, doesn't mean we didn't have some results to consider. Muhlenberg lost to Gettysburg. I then saw the Mules on Saturday at McDaniel, and they beat them by 10. It should have been 20 or more. The only problem with the Mules were they kind of fell asleep in the fourth quarter. They had McDaniel pretty well in control. The first half went by in less than 30 minutes. Both teams playing quick. The game was well in hand. The game was well in hand in the third quarter. Game was well in hand early in the fourth quarter. I dare say Rod Wood maybe went to the bench a little early, if you can believe that. I think he wanted to show respect, to McDaniel, just with what the score was headed towards, and maybe to give his players some rest. Ironically, they have a week off until their next game in Centennial play, which is next Saturday. So he didn't necessarily have to give them an early break, but maybe he was trying to save some legs after 3 tough games in the Centennial Conference this week. However, McDaniel took advantage of the opportunity and came back, and that 10-point win is as close as it got, but it got tense. And they started having to throw the starters back in for Muhlenberg on the women's side after things started to feel like they were unraveling. And it got dicey. It got dicey. How good is Muhlenberg? I don't know. I like their size inside, to be sure. They've got something like 3 or 4 6-foot footers they're willing to play and have all kinds of skills, certainly in height. But they're going to get exposed at the guard. Brandy Vallely is good. We all know that, but she's not great. I hate to say this, but it's almost like a Federici. Now, Federici's changed, in my opinion, in the last few weeks. But Federici, one of the frustrations we had with him at F&M, a lot of us on the outside, is he had a tremendous freshman year and petered off near the end of the freshman year. Most freshmen do, especially when you're the number one guy. But I didn't see any growth his sophomore or junior year. He still played well. He's still a good player, but he didn't take what felt like the next evolutionary step. It feels like maybe he's taken that evolutionary step this year. Vallely, I don't know if she's taken that next evolutionary step. And she doesn't. They've got other guards, but not as good as Vallely. And not that you need one as good when she comes off, but you need somebody. Put it this way. McDaniel used 4 different defenders to guard Vallely. And at one point in the first half, and I don't know why they got away from this because it was working really well, they were double-teaming Vallely. She got the ball, they harassed with 2 players, and it was working. They got away from it, but more importantly, Valley would go to the bench, and then McDaniel didn't worry about any other guards. They did not double-team anybody else because they weren't worried about it. Their guard one-on-one was going to do just fine with whoever had the ball. Now, in the second half, when Valley came back in, McDaniel didn't go back to the double team. I don't know how much that would have worked, but still, if McDaniel can double team Valley and have success and solo up the subs that come in for her and have success, imagine what top 25 teams are going to do to Muhlenberg. They've got the inside presence, and that's where their advantage is, but they got to get the ball to them. So that's where they may get exposed. Number 12 might be a little too high for them as a top 25. I kind of like Muhlenberg around 20 maybe. They're still a really good team and well-coached, certainly, but I don't think they're as high as everybody thinks they are. Other losses that took place, Juniata lost to Drew. That certainly was a surprise. Drew's a good team, though I haven't had a good chance to evaluate them this year as much as I'd hoped to. But they held Juniata just 44 points. That certainly tells you that the landmark race is getting even more interesting. You've already got Catholic and Scranton, certainly. Moravian's having a good season, and we knew about Juniata. Elizabethtown is lurking. Now Drew has made a statement in that race as well. Messiah lost to Albright. It's a little surprising. I know Albright's been good, but that's another game where, on the road, Messiah needs to put that game away. Gustavus Adolphus lost to Bethel. I don't know what to make of the Gusties on the women's side of things right now. River Falls lost to Oshkosh. Okay, Oshkosh is higher ranked, and after losing 2 last week, I think Oshkosh was coming out ready for vengeance. WashU lost to Brandeis on Friday. I think that caught a lot of people by surprise, and then defeated NYU. Ithaca lost twice. They lost to Rochester Tech in the middle of the week, lost to St. Lawrence this weekend, and then finally beat Clarkson. That's a bit of a shocker, too. Ithaca was having a tremendous season. Claremont Mudd Scripps lost to Chapman, and W&J lost to Thomas More. No surprise there, though a little closer than it's usually been in the past, 73-57. We will talk more about the Palestra coming up on the show. A wonderful thing at the Centennial. We will certainly talk about that. Give you an idea. We're light on guests today just to give the show a little bit more feel. Also, if you've got questions, we want to try and answer those questions. I haven't seen any necessarily, so c'est la vie, as they say. Looking around to see if we do have any. Of course, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can join us on the Facebook simulcast if you want to, etc., etc. Got a question from Jake. Says, if you get a chance in today's show, mention to listeners how amazing of a basketball mecca Palestra truly is. I'm spoiled as a Philadelphian, but I've seen hundreds of games over the years at the country's greatest basketball gymnasium. For starters, Jake, I'll say this much. It's not a gymnasium. I made this joke yesterday. I kept calling it a gym. It feels like saying it is a gym is being lesser of an amazing place. We will talk more, though, about the Palestra down the road. While this is not a D3 question, okay, but the Centennial did have a day of hoops at the Palestra. Why is Philadelphia the only city that has something like the Big Five? New York, D.C., Baltimore, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Seattle, Miami, Boston. Named a lot of cities. And many other cities have massive populations with tons of colleges and universities, yet nothing anywhere close to the Philly's Big Five. That's a tough one. Here's what I'll say. I think they all do. You're just used to what Philly's is called. Now, they had the advantage where they all played in the same place, the Palestra, for many years. Now they all have their own places to play, and I think they still come to the Palestra for some special one-offs, as it were. But they no longer all play and call the Palestra home. But every city that you mentioned, most of those cities that you mentioned, has a lot of college basketball that people revolve around. Chicago certainly is no exception to that. I know that well. Boston, very much so. Baltimore, to some degree, has it. They've got, I think, 5 Division I programs that have basketball. Loyola, Coppin, Morgan, UMBC, which is just outside the city, and I'm forgetting one because we used to have a tournament with them. Some of those other cities I'm not going to dive into because it's a little bit harder to dive in. I think the difference is that Philly had something that has had a longer history than maybe some of the others have had. Those Philly schools are certainly much older. And again, playing all at the same place, I think, held something to do with that. D.C. has some colleges, but not a lot. New York has a ton of colleges, and you kind of do see that in New York. We've seen that in New York. But every place has its own unique thing about sports, as it were, and that's what Philly's is this the Big Five. The difference is I think you all hold them still at such a higher level than they really are to some degree, while other cities have become realistic to where their colleges stand in the upper echelons. Let's be honest. Penn and St. Joe and LaSalle and all those, they aren't the big D1 behemoths anymore like they used to be. And thus, you all hold them at a higher degree and a higher level of an echelon, as it were, than the rest of everybody else does. And so in your city, it's big. Now, the history is certainly there, and we're not going to deny that. And they ended up playing at a pretty cool place like the Palestra, and they all played at the Palestra. And that's what makes them unique. But don't get me wrong, D.C. is entrenched and encircles Georgetown basketball. Georgetown men's basketball at the now called the Capital One Center is it's an event. Same in New York. They go out to those games. Same in Boston. They go out to those games. But those are programs that are a little bit different level now. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's just my take. We'll talk more about the Palestra, though, in the Centennial weekend coming up. In the meantime, we have guests on our show today. Did you know? Just two. We're going to keep it light. A tweet I saw from our good friend Bob Quillman about his Illinois Wesleyan women's basketball team, I'm going to try and quickly find, because it was one of those things that kind of triggered my head. I went, oh, yeah, that would be one of those that we need to keep an eye on. And so we got him on the show today. But his comment, through 6 CCIW games, Illinois Wesleyan women have outscored their opponents 531 to 367. Per game, that's 88.5 to 61.2. That's domination. So we will talk to Maya Smith coming up here on the show via Skype. We'll have her in just a few minutes. Also coming up, we'll go to the NABC Coaches Corner. Tony Wingen from Carnegie Mellon will join us. We'll talk to him about his work with the NABC, especially his long time as chair of the Academic Committee. We'll also joke about how he got that job, but we'll talk to him about that. And then we'll talk a little more about the Palestra, and then Ryan Scott will join us, and he will discuss with us his top 25, and we're going to add a little new part to the segment, the Triple Ds. We'll talk about it when we get closer. We'll break down what we think our top 25 ballots could look like. He's done a heck of a lot more work than I have on mine, but we'll still get an idea. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Don't forget, again, you can email us, Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com if you have a question for us. You can also tweet us at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're live streaming the show on a simulcast right now. If you've got questions, go ahead and try and answer them there. I'll be honest, we have to find a finagled way to see what your questions just might be, because it's not working as well as we thought it would be, like it normally does. But we'll certainly do our best to try and... Oh, I actually got it to work. How about that? So I can see your questions if you happen to chime in there. And that's how you do it. We'll take a break. When we come back, Mia Smith will join us. You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show on this Monday afternoon. A little preview of what we'll do a couple times. One, we may do this again after the Super Bowl. We tend to put the show on in the middle of the afternoon on Sunday. Kind of hard when other things are going on, so we might move that to Monday instead. Also, of course, it's also after the Hoopsville Marathon. An extra day wouldn't be a bad thing. Also, we tend to have a matchup Monday show after the brackets have been announced. That will be late February this year. So this kind of gets you an idea of when we're on the air on our Monday afternoon specials. All right, so let's talk women's basketball. The number 21 ranked team in the country is Illinois Wesleyan. And again, we mentioned before the show the tweet from our friend Bob Quillman, he's a huge fan and supporter of Illinois Wesleyan as an alum himself, pointing out that they were outscoring their opponents about 88 to 62 or something on average. And we'll go double check the number again before we have it. That got my mind racing, thinking, Chase, we have got to talk to the Titans women's basketball program. And it also feels like maybe 21 isn't good enough in their top 25. Well, I don't vote there, but we'll figure it out. Well, joining us to talk about it is their head coach. The head coach of Illinois Wesleyan, Mia Smith, joins us via Skype. Thank you very much, Coach.
Glad to be here, David.
I appreciate you taking the time, and great to see you on the video as well. You really are having a tremendous season. There's no way of looking around that right now when you look at the score, basically. But from your vantage point, I know we still got a lot of basketball to play. Are you happy with how things have progressed to this point?
Happy is a great word to describe it, David. This team is really easy to work with. They're a joy to coach. They are doing an excellent job of responding to game plans. And we've got a small number on our team this year. We only have 13 players, but I think that 13 is just really a quality-like team, and they're playing very well together. And like I said, they're easy, which makes my job very happy.
We should also point out you've got career victory number 200 just in the conference alone. But, yeah, that was the other thing I did notice is the roster isn't maybe as large as I'm either used seeing from you or used to seeing from some larger teams or also top-ranked teams. Of course, Amherst is another one like that, very small roster. But sometimes that can be helpful because the team can kind of bond a little bit better and maybe figure things out in a shorter period of time, I would assume.
That's exactly it. And figure it out is what we talk about a lot. We know what our roles are with this team. Everybody has accepted those roles. And once they did that, it was probably about the start of our conference season. That's when we really started putting up the high numbers offensively and then the low numbers defensively. So, like I said, they're really easy to work with. I didn't think I would appreciate a small roster. We started out the year with about 19 players, and several of those have continued to stay at the school but are pursuing stronger academic interests.
When we'll talk about the defense in a bit, and obviously the defense feeds the offense. The offense can feed the defense. But on the offensive side, you're really clicking. I mean, the numbers are really high, and I don't remember the last time I remember seeing a Titan squad who was that prolific, as it were, on the scoring side. You've always been a good defensive team, and you haven't needed to score a lot of points. Is it one of those where you just let them go to some degree? Is there any effort to try and rein them in at all either?
No effort to rein them in, but certainly I think sometimes my best coaching is when I say the least amount of things and just let them go out and do what they want to do offensively. Their shot selection this year has been a lot better. And I think one of the statistics that really makes a big difference for this team is our assist to turnover ratio. And, you know, we're led by Rebecca Ersman, and she really takes care of the ball for us, as do our other guards. And I think that's had a lot to do with the higher percentage shots. And we're sharing the ball beautifully. Sometimes I think we overpass a little bit, but they are fun to watch. And like I said, they are really taking care of the ball.
The only blemish this season is 2 losses, third and fourth game of the season, Whitewater and WashU. Well, okay. It's not like you shy away from a tough schedule. You had a win against Chicago before that. You had a win over a pretty gritty Rose-Hulman team after that. the WashU game being at DePaul. Did those two games tell you guys anything? It kind of felt like two opposites. You had a 62-60 loss to Whitewater and 89-81 loss to WashU. Did those two games help you in any way? Did you figure things out from those games, or are those just ones that didn't fit the mold, as it were?
No, actually, they told us a ton. And the game at Whitewater, we did not play well. A couple of our normally talented girls that take care of things, it just wasn't working for them in that game. So we'd really like a shot again at Whitewater, and hopefully that'll happen for us. And then against WashU, we played well, but we were a little bit just not in sync. It was still so early that we didn't have things worked out together. And now that we figured out what offenses we really like to be in and how we can score more effectively, we're doing things a lot better.
You got three players in double figures. Maddie Merritt at 13.5, Molly McGraw at 12, and Rebecca, is it Reshman? Ersman. I'm overthinking it. Ersman, 10.3. Of course, I also want to mention Kendall Sosa at 8.2. But those three certainly are the cogs, but you're averaging 83 points a game overall, as we mentioned, about 88 points in the CCIW. How do those three interact with each other and play off of each other?
Well, they all have very uniquely different games from each other. Rebecca plays a little bit more of a strength game. She can get inside and power up, use a pull-up jumper. Molly is quick, probably has, in my opinion, the most athletic-looking layup I've ever seen from a female. She can score any way she wants to around the basket on a breakaway layup. And then, of course, Maddie Merritt is our post girl. And what's really made a difference for Maddie, I think, has been the addition of our assistant coach, Marla Maupin, Cleveland. And she's just done a great job of really helping all of our post players develop new parts of their game.
I'll come back to that in a moment. Two of those three are seniors. McGraw and Ershman are seniors. How much is this about the senior class and what they're bringing to the table? How much is about the underclassmen and what they're bringing to the table?
I'll tell you what, the upperclassmen, Rebecca, Molly, and even Kelsey Walsberg, our other senior, they've just done, and this is probably one of the best captained teams I've had in a very long time. They're doing such an excellent job of bringing the underclassmen along. I think our underclassmen feel confident, they feel comfortable, and I think when you're in that type of environment, it's really easy to learn and to progress quickly, and that's what's happened.
Since those two losses, obviously you've rattled off, I believe it is 11 straight. With the win over North Park, again, you're dominating conference play. You beat Augustana 102-57, Elmer's 87-61, North Park 83-53. Of course, you've got Lori Kearns and Milliken coming up this week, along with Carroll, both games on the road. What has it been about conference play so far? And we should point out earlier in the season you beat Wheaton and North Central. Of course, North Central, not the same team we've used to. But what is it about what you've done in CCIW that has had you stand out so well? What is it about that's making you click? Are you guys by yourselves in this conference right now and everyone else is not on the same level? Or is it just you're just playing out of your minds to some degree?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. We tend to focus exactly on our own team and making sure we know what we need to be doing as a team to be successful. So, but I think one of the instrumental parts of the game is that we're forcing a lot of turnovers. Our pressure defense seems to be moving very well, and so we're putting teams under a lot of press stress. And anytime you can create turnovers, it gives you an offensive opportunity back with the ball, and we've been able to convert a lot of times on those turnovers and keep our offensive average up, and it also allows for some pretty good shot selection. If you get a breakaway layup from the turnover, I think that helps things out quite a bit. I'd also say this. I'd say that offensively, we're moving better as a team than I've seen my teams in the past, and it's really, like I said, they're fun to watch. We're drawing great crowds here at home. The last time our standalone crowd was 750 people, and we looked fun. We looked like we were having a great time, enjoying ourselves, and ball moves good. We make good decisions, and I just really like the way this team is playing together.
You talk about the turnovers. You're forcing 24.1 turnovers a game, while only, I think, turning it over yourself 14 or 15 times a game. That's a huge discrepancy. Is that because of in-your-face suffocating defense, or is it about timely hand in the passing lane type stuff? What's been the trick to that?
I think it's a combination of the two, to be honest. Our run and jump full court pressure is typically pretty intense, and I think sometimes, we can just force teams like tonight, for example. You mentioned Millikan. We have a feeling that Millikan's having to practice their press break against our run and jump. So anytime a team can have to spend time practicing against what we do, then we think it's a bonus for us. So, and we try to focus mostly on what it is that we're doing. So keep things in that perspective.
Interesting. You talked about Maria Maupin-Cleveland coming back, and I caught that one too. She's a former head coach of Illinois Wesleyan, was there for 2 years. What sparked that return? And then we'll dive into more to it later.
Sorry about that. I think I lost you for a second.
It's all right. We've got you if you got me.
Okay, good.
Yeah, apparently she heard the question, didn't want us to answer it. First off, just Maria Maupin-Cleveland's joined the program. She was head coach for 2 years. What prompted her to come back? Oh, we did lose, Coach. Oh, how about that? We'll try and get her back here momentarily. Bear with us. Apparently, Maupin-Cleveland doesn't want us to ask this question, or somebody doesn't want us to ask this question. Let's see if we can get Coach back here. Bear with us. Technical difficulties on a Monday afternoon, too. I guess Skype's having a case of the Mondays as well. We'll see. Of course, we may have lost her. I didn't say. We'll give it a little bit longer here and see if we can get her back. May have lost the internet there. But again, it's an interesting dynamic. Maria Maupin-Cleveland was a head coach at Illinois Wesleyan, as we mentioned, for 2 seasons. She went 15-36. From 1986 to 1988, so obviously it's not recent, but chose to come back and be an assistant, and I'd love to hear more about that, and hopefully we can hear from Coach Maya Smith about that. Back to Illinois Wesleyan from my vantage point. Ahead they got Millikan and Carroll, certainly. Then they got a nice home stretch of 3 games, North Central, North Park, and Augustana. They've actually got a stretch where 5 of 6 are at home, and then their last 2 will be on the road. So a nice mix of being able to enjoy things at home for Illinois Wesleyan, to be sure. Not sure if Coach Smith is coming back. Doesn't look like she's necessarily. We'll try one more time. Maybe we'll take a break and see if we can get her back. But even if we've lost her, certainly a fascinating point of view from her vantage point on what this team is doing. 21 seems low for this squad, and maybe it's because we're not sure what to expect from Illinois Wesleyan, who, remember, this is a team that was 18-10 last year. They were at 17-10 the previous year, 10-12 back in 2014-15. The last time they were this good, maybe it was 11-12 when they went 28-5. Of course, we're 08 and 09, they were 30-1. So we know what Illinois Wesleyan under Coach Mia Smith is capable of doing. It's all about the players, though, and we know that. You can have all the best coaching in the world. If you don't have players who can work off of that, it's irrelevant. They're now 13-2. They're about to equal last year's mark of 18-10 without any issues, and I think Coach Smith is back. We'll see if we can get her back here. We'll talk to her if we can about this turnaround to some extent. I think we're getting her back. Coach, there she is. I see you. Hold on. We'll get you back on so everybody can see you. Technical difficulties. I guess this computer was having a case of the Mondays?
I think it's called Ancient Computer. I'm due for a new one, but I'm too stubborn to have to learn how to use newer products. So.
I understand, Coach. Don't worry. I won't hold that against you. We were in the middle. I just thought it was because your assistant coach really didn't want us to ask this question. Marissa Maupin-Cleveland, as we mentioned, head coach for Illinois Wesleyan back in the mid-'80s. She was there for 2 seasons and then moved on. What has been the impetus to bring her back as assistant coach this season?
Well, actually, she came via the very famous and retired coach at Illinois State, Jill Hutchison. And Jill said that she was looking for some opportunities just to get back into the basketball world. She's recently moved back to Bloomington Normal, Marla has. And so we contacted her, and last year she began working with our post just a little bit. And this year she was all in, and we are just really thrilled to have her assistance. She's made a big impact with our post players and our players, actually, when it comes to playing post defense and how to look to score in different ways. And I guess at this point, I should probably give a shout out to my graduate assistant, Shelby Jackson, who got us back and running here. So
that's cool. Yeah, I said Maria. I think I did mean Marla. Just not reading that correctly. Fascinating to turn. Sometimes you don't see that every day, and I was fascinated by it. You also have, I mean, you've got a great coaching staff. You mentioned Shelby Jackson. You also have Chad Cusack on the team as well. I'm always fascinated with a coach's makeup of their assistants, and you really have a dynamic, diverse group. You have a young coach in Shelby. You've got a gentleman in Chad, and, of course, Marla, who's got a wealth of experience. How does that help you as a head coach?
You know, as you're talking about that, David, it gives me goosebumps to think about how good those three people are. It really does. I'm really blessed to have them on my staff. Illinois Wesleyan is blessed to have those people, as well as my girls. But they all bring a certain dynamic to our program that literally just completes us. I'm usually the intense one. Chad is the one who normally really focuses on our point guards and what they're doing. Marla takes over the post, and Shelby's got all of the day-to-day game planning, practice planning, travel planning, video stuff going on. So it has made my year, like I said, easy has been. Easy and happy are the two words that I'm using to describe this season.
It's certainly an interesting dynamic, and things like that can make a huge difference. You talk about just the post play alone. I'm fascinated when I find posts who can make great plays and can score in different fashions, and I'm frustrated by posts who don't seem to understand how to get from point A to point B without making a mess of it. So I'm fascinated with that, and I look forward to keeping watching it. This season feels like a turnaround to me. I know you were 18-10 last year. I'm not trying to say that you weren't good last year. We're not that far removed from 10-15, but it feels like the days of 28-2 are long past us. But this feels like the season that could be that.
Well, I don't want to jinx ourselves in any form, but we certainly, it feels that way to me too. I think a lot of our fan base kind of feels that way. It's reflected in the people coming to the ball games, the large crowd attendance. And as a coach who's been around for 30-some years, it has that same vibe that we had in 2009 through about 2012. And I just think I've got great girls in the program. We've got a lot of local girls, and that really refreshes our crowd, helps bring them back in. And certainly Rebecca Ersman has been the largest fan drawer, I guess you would say, to our games. The towns of El Paso and Gridley really come out to support Rebecca. And then we've got a couple local girls from Central Catholic. Those people all are coming out, and it's really fun. Kendall Sosa and Raven Hughes are both local girls, so it's just really been fun.
You mentioned the fun and the home games. You're going to have to get through 2 more away games here in a stretch of 3 aways. Then, as we mentioned earlier, while we missed you, 3 home games followed by really 5 out of 6 home games. You do finish 3 out on the 4 on the road, but I mixed in those 2. We kind of cross over in that 5 of 6, 3 of 4 comparison. You do have a lot of home games coming up. That's dangerous for the CCIW because you're clicking along both at home and on the road, but most of this is home on the way to the end. I don't want to jinx it either. You're undefeated. Wheaton is second. They've got 2 losses. It's not going to take that much to necessarily make sure to wrap up the top seed. But it doesn't look like there's anybody in the way of you guys steamrolling the rest of the way through this conference.
Well, I appreciate your confidence, David. We're going to take it one game at a time. I knew, yeah. But certainly it feels good at this point. That's what we can say. And we love playing at home. We love having our pep band, getting all rowdy and crazy. And they play such great music. Even if you just wanted to come listen to a great band play, come to the basketball games. They play for both the men and the women, and they're just super. And we love our little announcer guy, a really hot product from Central Catholic High School as well. His name is Lucas Smith, and he does a fantastic job on the mic. Everybody loves him. He's headed to Mizzou to pursue journalism, actually.
Yeah, Lucas Smith, you say. Smith,
not related.
Fascinating last name.
Not related, but I'd take it.
Oh, I thought that's where we were headed. Coach, this is going to be a weird question. We haven't seen the regional rankings. I don't have SOS numbers or anything like that in front of me. I'm looking at a top 25 that has you 21. You got 2 losses to 2 decent teams early in the season. Granted, I think a lot of people are shaking their head at the WashU result at this point, but it's tough. Are you, dare I say, underrated right now?
That's such a tough question. Gosh, if I say yes and, we take a bad loss, we could drop out. If I say, I don't know. That's hard. The rankings are hard because there are so many really good Division III women's basketball teams out there. And they're all so competitively close. That's the key, I think, is there's hardly any parity among all of that. So it's, the competition is always tough. And you could be 25 one day and you could be 100 the next. So
it's true. I'll give you that. You should come to the men's side. It's even crazier over there.
I know, it is crazy.
But I agree with you. The women has gotten deeper and deeper and more parity in the last few years. I've noticed it as well. This year especially. Tufts can go and lose 2 games and you shake your head. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time twice to join us here today. I appreciate you working through the tech issues as well. Good luck. Obviously, a big game coming up against Milliken on Friday, and another game on Saturday on the road against Carroll, and then kind of the nice turnaround and come back home and start really taking advantage of that. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
I just want to say that basketball has just been a great forum for females lately, and I'm so excited to be a part of that right now, and I'm really proud of the girls that I have in our program and the fact that they are changing some young female minds about the game of basketball and what all it can do for you. So it's really an honor to be the women's basketball coach at Illinois Wesleyan.
Well said. Good point of view as well. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck the rest of the way. Look forward to talking to you guys down the road.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Coach. Take care. Mia Smith joining us on the City of Salem Skype Hoopsville hotline. Appreciate her taking the time to do that. Again, pretty good run here. 11 straight wins after the back-to-back losses in late November. They're steamrolling through the conference, folks. I don't know what else to say better than that, and maybe I'll say it. I think they're underrated. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll jump to the NABC Coaches Corner. Their head coach of Carnegie Mellon will join us, and we're talking about student-athletes and why he's got his eye on them and their academic success. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the WBCA NABC studios.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. I got an email regarding the segment we'll do a little bit later here with Ryan Scott, and he'll join us via Skype to talk about the top 25. He's got some name ideas for the segment, which we haven't come up with. Trying to keep an eye out for you if you've got any questions for us via those other avenues, and we'll certainly keep an eye out and see if anybody's commented. But so far, nobody. That's okay. It's all right. It's just a Monday afternoon here, and we're talking Division III basketball. All right, so we're going to talk on Sunday evenings. We normally have the NABC Coaches Corner. Obviously, we didn't have a show on Sunday evening, so we're transitioning a little bit here and going on to a Monday afternoon. We'll have the NABC Coaches Corner. Gives us a chance to talk to coaches who are doing more than just coaching. They're giving back in some capacity. They're either giving back in their communities, giving back in their professional development, as it were, or whatnot. The coach we have coming up today basically has an eye, as it were, on the student athlete. Always has had an eye on the student athlete. He's the head of the NABC Academic Committee and has for a long time. We'll talk to him about why. Joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, presented by the City of Salem, it is Tony Wingen, the head coach of Carnegie Mellon. Coach, thanks for taking the time, sir.
Thank you, Dave. It's good to be here.
I appreciate that. I think it just dawned on me, and this is an inside joke to some degree, but once again, you've been volunteered for something by Charlie Brock.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Charlie's good at that. He's good at volunteering people and then taking whatever credit for it that he can get. So, and that's a joke as well. Charlie does unbelievable work with the NABC, and he's the head coach at my alma mater. And another, coincidentally, he was an assistant coach at Springfield my freshman year. So that gives you an idea how old he is.
Wow.
And then he left my sophomore year. He left and became the head coach at Drew, and then the rest is history from there. But we go back a long ways. We
won't get the license plate of the bus that just ran him over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this all came about because I'm looking for segment guests for this idea, and Charlie's like, "I got a great one. I'll get you in touch with them." And the next thing I know, my phone is ringing, and it's you.
Yep.
And I'm blown away by this because it's another thing that Charlie volunteered you for, but you have not only been on the academic committee and chaired the academic committee with the NABC recently, you've been doing it forever. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of A, what is the academic committee with the NABC, and B, how long exactly have you been serving?
Sure. So the academic committee, it essentially is a committee, and it's an all divisions committee. Although it is more Division III heavy right now. It's a committee that really our primary role is to promote academic success. And the academic good work that college basketball players are doing across the country, and we're continually looking for ways to promote that, and ways to help coaches and their SIDs to promote the good work that their student athletes are doing, and certainly in Division III, I know there are student athletes at every level, but at our level, every one of our players is a student athlete. They're playing because they love to play. There's no scholarship involved, and the large majority of them, their career is not going to be in basketball once they're done playing. So essentially, the committee, our committee, looks for ways to promote the student athlete and particularly the academic side of what they do, and help coaches to promote that work as well. And I got onto this committee kind of by default. I was another default, right?
Yeah.
I was Bill Fenlon, who's now the head coach at DePauw. I was his assistant coach at Sewanee. And when Bill left to become the head coach at Rose-Hulman, I was promoted to head coach at Sewanee, and Bill had moved out of our district the district that he was representing on the Committee on Academics. And so Bill Napton, who was the chair at that time, he called me and asked if I'd be interested in filling that spot, and I said I would. And 30 years later, here I am now as the chair for the last 10 years, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
It certainly sounds like it. And we should point out, I mean, there's a team award. Teams who have a 3.0 GPA cumulative amongst all their players and higher are honored. I mean, obviously, I'm not that surprised if your committee is a little D3 centric and heavy.
Sure.
You made the argument. We all know that student athletes are the important part of this. I mean, we truly in Division III, as shameless or as corny as it is, we do go by the student athlete part of that title.
Yep.
But is there an effort of your all to find better ways or bigger ways to promote, to shine a spotlight? I mean, what exactly is the ultimate goal, I guess? And that's kind of a loaded question, I realize.
Right. Well, the ultimate goal obviously would be for each school, and I think really in Division III and in all divisions, schools are really doing a good job of promoting community service and academic success of their student athletes, and our role is really to just kind of push that and make sure that they're doing everything they can. The two kind of nuts and bolts awards that we have are the Honors Court, which has been that's been in place now for over 25 years, and it's a program where we honor any player who has any junior or senior player who has a 3.2 GPA or higher, and it's simply coaches report those students. We recognize them nationally, and then when the release comes out, we strongly encourage everybody to get that into the media, promote it on your website, and I would say 100% of the schools are doing that, and that's a way to promote maybe that guy who's the 13th or 14th guy on your roster who's a 4.0 student or a 3.7 student or whatever. It's a way to get him some recognition that he deserves. That's outside of what he's doing on the floor. And then the other program that goes along with that is the Team Academic Excellence Award, and we're in our 5th year of that right now. And that is an award that recognizes any team that has a 3.0 team GPA or higher of all of the players who appeared on their roster during that season. And that number has gone up every year. I think it took us a little while to get some momentum on it, but once they saw what a good tool it was to promote academic success of your team, everybody was reporting, and the number has grown over the last 4 years, and it's a program that we look to have established for a long time, like the Honors Court. And then over the years, we've had some bigger individual awards. Years ago, we had a Scholar Athlete of the Year award. We had one for each division, and our committee administered that. We had the Literacy Champion Award, which was in place for 10 or 12 years, and we had some very prominent winners. Two of our Division III coaches that were winners of that award were Charlie Brock and Steve Moore from Worcester.
Yeah.
And we had some heavy hitters too. Mike Krzyzewski was a winner one year. Tubby Smith when he was the head coach at Kentucky, and then a big thrill that I had. I was able to present that award to Bob Knight, the year that after his last year at Indiana.
Okay.
And the chair of the Committee on Academics no longer presents that award. I don't know if that reflects my performance at the award ceremony or not, but so that was a short-lived presentation career that I had, but that was interesting and a lot of fun to give that award.
Certainly a lot more work, I think, goes into these things and into these committees than people realize. I mean, I think for some of the NCAA committees, I think we understand that, the rules committees and
Sure.
all that stuff. But I think with a committee like yours, at first I was thinking, okay, you're just basically overseeing some award. No, you guys really have a lot of things that you have to tackle on a yearly basis. I don't want to say daily, but a yearly basis. And at the same time, I assume you're always trying to tweak it to make it better.
Absolutely, and I have a really good committee of coaches. Lon Reisman, Division II head coach at Tarleton in Texas, has been on the committee for quite a while. Rich Reed from Laverne is my co-chair. Gary Stewart from Stevenson, who's also a board member.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Curley from Juniata. Hillary Scott from Lynchburg. Paul Phillips from Clark. And we've got Eddie DeCellis, head coach at Navy. Steve Donahue at Penn. So it's a good committee of coaches, and we're continually looking for ideas, and there's a little process that we have to go through with the board and Rick Letty, who's essentially the SID for the NABC.
Yep.
And Charlie's been very helpful with that, in that he's been able to push some ideas through, and we've got a couple that we're thinking about right now, just some ways that we can kind of highlight some individual student athletes with some things that they're doing, and maybe go a little bit beyond just the academic side of things and get into community service and mentorship and leadership and things like that. So I think the time is right maybe for us to expand what we do, with the scope of our work.
Yeah, fascinating.
So.
And definitely a hard-hitting group there. We should point out that you've always kind of been involved in academic type of schools, not only in Division III, but your brief soiree, as it were, in Division I. You, of course, were at Brown, which is part of that, the elite of the elite in terms of academics in the Division I side of things in the Ivy League. And then you mentioned Navy, and you mentioned Penn as part of your group. Yeah, they're kind of synonymous with that as well.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
I mean, I know this is about college, and I know it's about student athletes, and we say that all the time. But why is it? I'm trying to find a better way of saying it. Why is it so important? But it feels like that. Why is it so important to make sure we're recognizing the student athlete for what they're doing in the classroom?
Well, I think that everyone is so quick to point out the negatives.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a scandal. Everybody's looking for, give me some bad news to report. Because that's what sells websites and newspapers and everything.
Sure.
And
that's why we're not successful.
Well, right, right, and when you get right down to it, I mean, what are we really doing this for? I mean, yes, we compete, we want to win, and everything, but student experience is really the hallmark of what we do in Division III, and when we recruit guys to come to Carnegie Mellon, we talk about that career development and helping them with their career path. Everything we do is geared toward that, and that includes coming to work and grinding it out in practice every day, and doing the work every day in the classroom, and but it also involves networking with alumni and getting internships and things like that. The way we travel in the UAA is part of the student experience and part of the career development, if you will, because we're flying to major cities, and and that's an experience that helps them in their career search.
Sure.
So
makes sense to me. It's a lot of fascinating work. I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I could talk more about it, but I don't think we need to drag our viewers along with you.
Right.
But I certainly would love to chat with you more about it in the future. Any chance we're going to see you at Salem?
It's possible.
Okay,
it's
good.
Possible.
I know we can maybe see it when we go to Fort Wayne, but it's still a long trip for you. So I wouldn't mind catching up with you if we can. Let's talk about your team a little bit. I know it's probably not the best of seasons necessarily when you look on it on paper. 4-10 on the season, of course, in the middle of Centennial UAA play. But your vantage point, how is the season going?
Well, we're struggling right now with our record. As everybody sees, 4-10 is 4-10.
Yeah.
But we've got a good group of young players, and a handful of juniors and seniors who are leading us and helping those young guys to find their way. And we just came off of a road weekend at Emory and at Rochester.
Yeah.
And a weekend against two really good opponents where we competed very well. And so I'm pleased with the way we played. We've got the inconsistency that a young team will have. But I think we're getting better, and we get a couple of home games this week. Although it's Chicago coming in Friday and WashU on Sunday, so
take your poison.
Home games, yes, but another two more good opponents, and and I guess I've had an ongoing conversation with the guy who sets our schedule. Because our non-conference schedule has not been the easiest either.
Yeah,
so, I need to get to work with that guy and figure out how we can do that a little better.
Mary Washington has a good year. You've at least got a win over there, but Juniata, they tripped you up.
And,
Hobart got a hold of you. Lyco got a hold of you. So you ought to talk to that guy.
Yeah, he and I will get it figured out. And try and make sure people aren't looking at me strange as I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, perfect. You obviously didn't start well with Case Western Reserve in the 94-63, but Emory, you mentioned it was a 5-point loss in Rochester. Right in that game within 12 at the end. What do we make of the UAA this year? You've got Chicago and WashU ahead, and certainly we're not at that point of playing a lot. But I know you've watched enough tape. WashU looks like they're pretty darn good. Mike McGrath looks like he's got a squad that its record's a little deceiving. I don't know what to make of Emory. I like Rochester. Maybe I'm the only one. What do we make of the UAA race? It feels very kind of hodgy-podgy this year.
Yeah, I think there's a little more. It's early, but I think clearly you've got WashU, Emory, and Rochester. Are the three that look really good.
Mm-hmm.
And WashU's got all seniors, and they've had success the last couple of years. They are really, really good. And Emory, Jason Zimmerman's style is different than everybody else's. Just the way they're so up tempo and so aggressive with their defense. They're always really good as well. And Rochester, they on paper they lost a lot through graduation,
right?
But they're really good system wise, and they shoot it so well, and they're better defensively than people give them credit for. So they're the three that I think clearly everybody looks at as the kind of the power. And then you've got Chicago, who's played a really good non-conference schedule and puts a lot of three-point shooters on the floor. NYU has, had a good non-conference record. Kind of took it on the chin last week in the Midwest, but they're a good team. And then you've got us and Case and Brandeis, who are younger teams that are trying to figure it out. So it'll get interesting as the schedule goes along, But I think right now that's kind of the way it looks. You've got the three, and then two, and then three others. But that could change over the next few weeks.
WashU put a number on NYU this weekend.
They did. Yeah.
61 in the first half, on to 113 for the game.
Yep.
Not a prototypical WashU game.
No, that's no. When you think about WashU, you don't necessarily think about that kind of offensive numbers. But you think about offensive efficiency, but
yes,
but not necessarily high scores.
No. Is that a kind of game as a coach you go, oh crap, or is that one of those games you go, you know what, that until I see that 2 or 3 times, I'm not buying in.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't become the norm. Let me say that. I think that they are who they are, and there's going to be some anomalies, every now and then. But
sure.
Hopefully we don't see another 100 this weekend.
Yeah.
Or if we do, it's on Friday and not Sunday.
I wonder why.
Yeah. You guys can figure that one out.
Yeah, you can put 2 and 2 together. Jason Zimmerman right now is going, thanks a lot. Not Jason.
Todd.
Yeah, Todd's going, thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Really
Right.
appreciate that. Well, sir, I appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, we do have our little Q&A section that we do with each coach. It's the same questions we ask. That way we kind of hear all the different answers. There's a little crossover with the WBCA version of this, but we also have some more unique questions for our NABC fans. Are you ready to have these? These aren't complicated. It's kind of off the cuff, kind of off the top of your head type stuff.
All right. Okay. I'm ready.
All right. I think I know the answer to this one. I kind of do every time I ask it. Best part of coaching Division III?
Interaction with the students every day.
Yeah. Like I said, thought I saw that one coming. Your biggest pet peeve as a coach?
Well, I've been known to joke that coaching beats working for a living.
Yeah.
And so, boy, I don't know if I have a pet peeve.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
That's fine. You don't have to. Is there a rule or nuance to the game that you absolutely love?
A rule.
Or nuance. Doesn't necessarily.
Yeah. Boy,
there's nothing.
Not complicated, but yet complicated.
Yes. As long as you don't say smart, people will be fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. I mean, a nuance of the game. I just love the teamwork involved with basketball, and just to me, it's the greatest game in the world.
That's a cool way of saying it. Me likey, as they say.
Yeah.
All right. So, what is a rule you'd love to see changed or removed?
I think that I would like to see the restricted arc taken out. I know it was put in to make the block charge easier to call for referees, but I'm not sure it is.
Okay.
So I'm probably in the minority as far as that goes, but I would like to see that removed. And on top of that, I think I'd like to see the 5-second closely guarded call back in.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I hate where the guy can just kind of just sit there and dribble.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you as well.
Yeah.
If your wife or your friends are watching, I don't make any assumptions with this question, and they know you well enough, what would you say they would say that they'd like to see you change on the bench, or how you are on the bench or in a game?
Well, my wife is my coach.
Okay.
And she is she monitors my body language and facial expressions and things like that. So she's continually getting me to clean up my my body language and things like that, and not be as demonstrative maybe with.
Oh, I accidentally hit a button. Oh, hold on. We will get him back. I was reaching for something on the control panel and hit a button. Can you believe it? I apologize, folks. Hold on a quick second. I just got to find the email that's got. Oh, Coach, you there? Oh, sorry about that. That was me. That was all me. You were talking about body language, and I got all freaked out. No, I was reaching for something on our control panel, and I accidentally brushed past a button that killed the phone.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. You were saying about body language and your wife.
Yep. Well, she it monitors my facial expressions and things like that,
Okay.
and that's all good, and it needs to be. But about 15 years ago, in Division III gymnasiums, we have these quiet times every now and then.
Yes.
And I let a very big bad word go. Right in the middle of a game that I don't do that anymore.
Well, that's appropriate. I got a question coming up that's kind of along those lines. We'll get to that. What would your assistants say they want you to change?
Well, I have two very good young assistants, three very good young assistants, and they would probably say that I'm sometimes a little bit too lenient with our players.
Okay.
And I don't know that that's lenient in a bad way, but perhaps I'm not as tough on them as I should be at times.
Okay.
I recognize that may be a shortcoming of mine as well.
Okay.
So,
what can you say to a referee that will get the message across, but will not earn yourself a tee? Like, what can you say that will get you right up to that line? Maybe even dabble your toe in the water, but will not get you the aforementioned bad word in a quiet setting scenario.
Yep. Well, I'm very big on consistency and guys being in the right position. But one of my favorites is, you know what, guys? I have to watch this stupid video every fall that explains all the rules changes and all of the points of emphasis that you guys are supposed to be calling. So if I have to watch this video, shouldn't you call the game the way that video says you're supposed to call it? And yeah, they'll listen to that.
I was going to say, I can't see a ref teeing you up for that.
No, they can't tee you up for that.
No, that one is that's pretty good. I like it. Finally, when you retire, because all coaches eventually do.
Yep.
What do you hope people will remember you as a coach?
I hope they'll remember me as a guy who cared about my student athletes. I hope they'll remember me as a teacher, and I hope they'll remember that the experience they had was one of the greatest things they had in their life, and hopefully it was meaningful.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you answering our fun questions. We did get one email that I'd love to get your answer to. Okay. It's fascinating. No, it's got me thinking. It said, speaking of academics in Division III, do you think it's a recruiting advantage or disadvantage for a school to have very high academic standards?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. It really is. And fortunately, at our school, the guys that we're recruiting have an understanding of the academic standards and how difficult and challenging the coursework is. Unfortunately, that means we're recruiting against MIT and WashU and Chicago and Emory and other schools like Johns Hopkins. But I of course, I look at it as an advantage. That the high academic standards are an advantage for us.
Yeah, I said it this way. I don't know if it's the right answer. I think it depends on the recruit.
Well, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage because it depends on the recruit you're going for.
Yep.
If the recruit is up for that kind of challenge academically, and that's what interests them, along with basketball, it's an advantage.
Yep.
If they're not interested in that in that standard, if they're not interested in putting that foot forward, or maybe they just aren't capable.
Yep.
I would fall in the category of probably not being capable. I wouldn't have succeeded at a Carnegie Mellon, let alone my application would have found its way to the trash can before being open. Then it doesn't work.
And,
it's a disadvantage.
The other thing is if they're not qualified or if they're not interested in that type of academic challenge, then you shouldn't waste each other's time.
That's true too. Yeah. So hopefully you learn that early.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Well, Coach, I love chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Excluding my little haphazard plug of the of the phone line there. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
And your audience knows this already. Division III basketball is the best value in sports. Most of us are not charging admission for our games, or it's a very, very small admission fee. And I think people, when they go out and watch a good Division III game, they see how entertaining and what great basketball it is. I think they get hooked. And I thank you and D3 Hoops for what you guys do to promote Division III basketball, and you guys have been great at that. And
thank you.
Thank you, and keep it going.
Absolutely. I'm going to steal that best value in. That's outstanding. I like that one because I never thought of it that way. You're right. It really is. Thanks so much. Take care, and we'll talk to you somewhere down the road.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
He is Tony Wingen, head coach of Carnegie Mellon men's basketball. The Tartans, one of those cooler mascot names out there. Not having the greatest of seasons, but building 4-10. Chicago and Wash U at home coming up. Then they get the double weekend after that. They're at NYU and Brandeis before being home against NYU and Brandeis. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Palestra, and we'll talk about things with Ryan Scott, our top 25 fellow voter. Got some people with some ideas of a title name for the segment. We'll run those past Ryan as well. You're listening to Hoops, presented by D3Hoops.com for the WBCA and NABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back. We're on Hoopsville. Hope you are enjoying this Monday afternoon version of the show. If you got any questions for us, we're in our last 20 minutes or so of the show. You can tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on the Facebook simulcast or on our YouTube page. I'm checking around. Not a lot of questions. Not a big deal. Certainly don't need to have a lot of questions, but we have gotten a few. We have a couple things ahead. We're going to bring Ryan Scott in for. One, I'm throwing a curveball on him. We're going to talk about the Palestra yesterday. Also, we're going to talk our usual top 25. And when we do, we've gotten some title names that we're going to run past Ryan and see what he thinks of them before we go. And we've got a new format to this segment, and we'll get to that as well. In the meantime, you're going to see something. No, you're not, because it's off your screen. All right, so let's go to the aforementioned Ryan Scott. Joins us live via the City of Salem Skype hotline. Sir, hello.
Hello.
Good to see you. I got to see you again yesterday. We're running into each other more often on the road, which is nice. Let's just get to it. That ended up being better than I expected, I think, at the Palestra. And maybe the games helped, but that was a cool experience yesterday with the Centennial at the Palestra.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really know what to expect in terms of how many people would they be able to get out. The Palestra's a really unique venue. They've probably got 9,000 seats in that place.
Yeah.
But 1,000 people can sound like it's full enough. You know, you don't need anyone in that upper section to make it feel intimate and full and lively. And we didn't know what to expect out of the games, but they were, 4 out of the 5 were pretty interesting right down to the end, which is, about what you can hope for.
Yeah. The sound rises in the Palestra. It's like that old school thing. I remember listening to the PA announcer as a PA announcer myself. I didn't get a chance to truly listen to him, but I got a chance to pick out parts, especially introductions. And his sound normally just rises up. It echoes in the upper parts of the Palestra, and it has that old reverb feel to it. It was really kind of quintessential basketball back in the day. And I know those in Philadelphia are like, yeah, we know it's the Palestra. But for those like myself who've never been, for someone like Gordon who had been but never called a game on the floor, or to any of those teams, never getting a chance to play there, that was a great opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we should give a shout out to I assume that's the UPenn PA announcer, but he did all 5 games and all the announcements between games and during halftime straight through the whole day. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a full UPenn staff for the most part for live stats. I think they brought in some extra assistants, and we saw, for example, our good friend James Wagner. It was a UPenn video stream crew. The only thing that we did was call the games for them. They did all the video production. They manned the fort as a concession stands. They manned the security, and they manned all the media stuff, and they ran the clock and all of that. It was all UPenn group, and I want to hats off to them because they did a tremendous job themselves. Apparently, they had a doubleheader Friday, a doubleheader Saturday, and 5 games on Sunday. So they were a little busy.
Wow.
It may or may not come back. I've heard it may, but the games were fun. When the sun finally set, they could kind of have a little fun with the special effects in the building and do some lighting stuff. It ended up being fun. Of course, that 4th game was insane.
Yeah, the double overtime. I mean, that was the highlight. Not only we were sitting just down the row from Dickinson's president courtside, and she was into it and jumping up and yelling the whole time. And I got excited. I hadn't seen Washington College yet with this group of sophomores that they have. Really impressive talent that Aaron Goodman's brought in there, and I'm doubly excited because that's the closest D3 school to my house. So next couple years should be really interesting.
Yeah, I had even Connor Flegel, who was calling the game with me, who knows them very well, was like, I haven't seen this from this squad. We're not a drive and slash type of. I mean, they evolved right in front of Connor's eyes. That's a team. I hate to. I feel like I'm getting a little out on a limb here because I think we've said this in the past and it just hasn't come to fruition. But that's a team that could change the look of the Centennial here in a year or two. This could be fascinating.
And that's Aaron Goodman's first recruiting class. So he wasn't hired until May, and at a Centennial school, May is you're not bringing in any more recruits at that point. So this sophomore class is his first group, and they were very impressive, long and quick, and good decisions. Really, really smart basketball IQ kids out there on the floor, and it's the kind of potential that honestly. I mean, they don't quite have the same size, but it was the kind of potential I saw that first weekend looking at Wittenberg, who obviously has a few more seniors on their roster and are doing a lot better this year. But the same kind of thing where you're like, wow, in a year or two, this is going to be a formidable opponent.
Yeah, agreed with you. If they can get their young center to get his feet under him a little bit, they'll have a little bit of presence inside. They've got a lot of really good shooters. They've got a lot of really good slash and drive and dish kind of guys. I like what I saw there. Dickinson, they're kind of in a reshaping mode, as it were, though that three-pointer by Allen in the corner to force the second overtime was ridiculous.
Well, and Dickinson's problem the last month or so has just been defense. I was voting for them the first couple of weeks in the top 25 because they've got a strong squad and they're deep and reliable, but they have just not been able to stop anybody the last month or so, and they've taken a bunch of losses.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, I will say that for Washington, they lost Porteous to an ankle injury. I hope it's for the short term. But even in the long term, they've got a lot of nice guys there. It was fun. And we even saw some really good women's basketball at the beginning. Gettysburg, Ursinus was a battle, and we saw two really good post players go on one-on-one. Gibbons from Gettysburg and Corniker. I'm saying that last name wrong. I apologize. From Ursinus. So we saw little bits and pieces here that really made it a fascinating day.
The Ursinus women, they're very young squad too.
Yep.
They had a freshman point guard out there, was handling the ball a lot and really confident. And like you said, they post player and a lot of freshmen and sophomores there as well. So
look forward if they can do this again. The Centennial Conference, I think, is tuning in. They said to us on Twitter, it was fun, wasn't it? It was. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool too when I walked out, because I walked out to see and I'd already walked past Franklin Field. That wasn't it, but it was all bathed in light, and I thought to myself, this is just cool.
Yeah, and it's just a unique experience. I had friends of mine from out in Kansas, and of course they're big college basketball fans out there, but just saying how jealous they were that I was there just to be in the building and see a game. And it really is a kind of a bucket list place for people who love college basketball.
Yeah. Even my parents, who I think they do a lot of things I do, they think are cool. My dad's like, dude, really? That's outstanding. I mean, the Palestra takes on another level. It is a mecca in all of college basketball, and pretty darn cool. Pretty darn cool. Hey, let's transition to our top 25 chat, which we have started up of late. We've gotten some really cool ideas for a name. Connor Flegel, by the way.
At me. What do we got?
Connor Flegel, by the way, says it was a blast. One of them comes from Stephanie. She says, how about top 25 pick and roll?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I like that.
A friend of ours listening in, Sam, who's actually probably not listening live. I think he's actually going to listen to it a little bit later. But he says, I've been listening the last few weeks. Got some ideas. He heard Ira's great Scott idea, thinks that's pretty good. But one of his ideas is, who do you got, Ryan Scott? Or who do you got with Ryan Scott?
Yeah.
Nice little back and forth. I like it. And then we have an email we can get to a little bit later.
I just like that we have people watching it enough that they're coming up with names for it.
Yeah, how about that, or at least our diehards are listening to it. Maybe that's it. You've come up with some help with the segment, too, I want to point out, and you've come up with what we're going to call the triple D for now. We'll call it the deep dive, the dubious, and the debatable. Kind of give us a sense we'll go step by step. Give us a sense of what deep dive and what do you mean by that?
So what I wanted to do with that, and the D's, just kind of work themselves out. I like alliteration, but the deep dive was hopefully each week that I could make a case for a team that's not receiving any votes at all, which means it also has to be a team that I'm not voting for, because as a voter, if I were, they would be getting votes. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a top 25 or that I will vote for them. But, making a case for a team that may be flying a little bit under the radar is the deep dive. And then,
all right.
Dubious is one of those that feels like maybe the voters as a whole are ranking a little bit too high, and I'm a little skeptical of. And then debate is one that hopefully, because you have your blog every week, that I can pick one out that maybe you and I would disagree on, and we can go back and forth and maybe hash out something.
Cool. I like it personally. I'll be honest. I've been working on it. I don't have a deep dive this week. I think because things are getting convoluted. I had one and then realized there were others who were voting for him. And then I had another and I realized some were voting for them. So I'll let you have the deep dive this week. I'll be a little bit more prepared for next week. But what is your deep dive team this week?
Well, the one that I think is maybe sneaking around is Ohio Northern.
Okay.
out of the OAC. They're 11-4 right now, which is why they're not getting votes. But it's a strong team. The OAC is a strong conference this year. You know, we've had Marietta is been perennial the last few years, but also Baldwin Wallace and John Carroll getting votes here and there. Ohio Northern's the fourth team in there. If you look at who they lost to, they lost at WashU early in the season by 4 points, which is a good one. At John Carroll by 6 points, in the middle of December. And then they lost that one at Marietta by 4 points a couple weeks ago. That was the one where they had the power outage.
Yeah.
And I watched the whole first half up until the power outage, and Ohio Northern was definitely dominating that game. They were better. They were playing better. And I don't know if maybe the 4 hours off in the middle of the game threw off the momentum or anything, but I think I would take that with a grain of salt. The other one is sort of an inexplicable Alma loss back in November. But if you look at, and this is, Alma is 5-10 right now, but they opened the season at Illinois Wesleyan, at Augustana, at Elmhurst, at Ohio Northern, versus WashU, versus North Central, versus Wheaton.
Jeez.
And they went
heartburn thinking
2-5
about that.
through that. So I think they're a little better than the record, and I would excuse that loss. But, Ohio Northern beat Baldwin Wallace this week at Baldwin Wallace. They beat Keene State over the holidays at a tournament, which is another team I think is a little under the radar. So, somebody at least to be watching. They've got two really talented guys, both scoring 20 points per game. And for me, I definitely look at the actual play of the team and the makeup almost as much as the records themselves. And this is a team that I would feel confident that could win a game or two or even three in the tournament under the right circumstances.
I did find one. They're getting votes, so it kind of defaults a little bit. Of course, some of them are from me, I think. Did I? No, I did not put them in last week, interestingly enough. I wanted to wait a little bit longer, and what they did is they went and proved themselves, to me at least initially. And it's Emory and Henry. Again, they're getting some 7 votes right now, so this may not be fair, but they're 14-1. Some of these are not their fault because some of these teams haven't turned out to be as good. But it kind of, in quote, my other kind of add-on to this is Transylvania. They beat Transylvania, and I like Transylvania this year. I think Transylvania is sneaky good. Their win over Hanover is now being overshadowed by the fact that Hanover has stumbled since. Those seem to be righting themselves. I like Transylvania, and as a result, I really like Emory and Henry. And yes, I talk to their coach, and sometimes that is my way of kind of buying into a team. They also have what was a really good loss, in my opinion, to Worcester. That is their only loss of the season, 77-68. I like the result there. Then they went and dominated Guilford. And I know Guilford's struggling, but I like that Guilford could put it together at any point. And then they went and doubled down and beat Virginia Wesleyan. And that was kind of my line. Now, I didn't end up voting for them last week because I had all kinds of chaos last week. But they're probably going to end up on my ballot this week. The win over Virginia Wesleyan by 6, I felt good about. They then beat Roanoke. They then beat Hampden-Sydney on the road, which is always tough, even though Hampden-Sydney is 4-11. They do have Lynchburg and Randolph making ahead. But I think Emory and Henry is a team that no one realizes is as good as they are, and it's probably because their conference is struggling, to be blunt. They're not as good as they were. But I think Emory and Henry is a program that I think they're doing really well there, and they're getting 7 votes in the top 25. I think they should be getting more. They certainly will get more from me. But that would be my deep dive, though I know they're getting some votes there, so it technically doesn't count.
Sure.
Let's slide over to our dubious. I'll let you go, and then I'll definitely jump in on this with trying not to repeat myself.
Yeah, so this one kind of pains me a little bit because I was kind of on the bandwagon at the start of the year, but I am a little head scratchy about why we still have Williams so high up on the top 25.
I've had them all over the place, Ryan.
Yeah,
all over the place.
Collectively, they're still way up in the top 5.
Yeah.
And, coming into the season, they were a Final Four team last year. They were bringing almost everybody back, looking really good. Certainly every reason to have them high at the beginning of the year. Started out without a whole lot of challenging competition, and they did perfectly fine. And then we lost Kyle Skadlock for the year, injury. Their best player, one of the more talented guys, versatile. They lost that overtime to Wesleyan, which in retrospect, not so bad. Wesleyan's a pretty solid team. But just watching some of these games hasn't felt like they've put together the chemistry yet. And of course they can maybe save that and by the end of the season come around again. lost at Hamline. Well, it's a tournament in California, 2 points. You can sort of forgive that, but at the same time, if you're a top 5 team, you probably shouldn't lose that game. And then this weekend losing to Tufts, who we all know is better than their record, but still, again, if you're a top 5 squad, not a game you should be losing. And the other part of that is they've done 2 games against Wesleyan so far. They split them both overtime games, but other than that, Tufts is the best NESCAC team they have played so far, and they lost that game, which makes me a little dubious, and that's why they're here.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. I feel like I'm going to be a little repetitive here with this one. It's going to be, for me, I've got an interesting one later, but I'll go with Lycoming for now. One loss, I get it. They're 16-1, but if you break down their record, who have they really played? Medgar Evers 4-10, Oneonta 8-2, Susquehanna 5-9, Penn College 1-13. Okay, they got a win over Messiah, but it's about a 500 10-6 squad. Hood 6-8, Alvernia 8-8, Widener 8-7, 5-9, 8-6, 4-10, 4-10, 11-5. But they lost that game. That was 11 Valley. 10-6 Stevenson, 11-4 Albright. Albright may be a little overrated. I'm not putting much into a 1-point win where they had to come from behind to do it. Arcadia. I think, listen, Lyco may have a good team. I'm not trying to take that away from them. But 12th in the country feels a little high to me. I know they were even higher than that. They were up to 6, weren't they, before they took the loss to Lev Val? I feel like that's a jump on a team because they're undefeated and we're going to keep riding the train until they aren't type of decision. I'm just a little nervous. I know they got some good players, but they don't have a resume that tells me they're a top 15 team. As a side note, I'm a little nervous about York being a little dubious too. I saw them on Saturday. I have them at 6. I don't like it anymore. I like them. Got a lot of good parts, but I've seen a lot of good teams this year in person. York might be a little high.
Maybe this is a good spot to just talk a little bit about the rationale people use in choosing and ranking teams.
Sure.
Right? So there's a couple of ways you can go. One of them is just to look at the teams out there and say who's the most talented team on the best night they could beat anybody.
Sure.
And there you're looking for potential and talent, and that's one way to go at it. Another one is to say, if you're going to win this tournament, you got to be consistent and at a high level for 6 games over 3 weekends. Who's going to be the team that plays at the highest level the most consistently? And then the other one is just to look at how teams are playing in the moment and say, right now, this team is really hot, and we're going to rank them up there. And I think, Lycoming is one of those that I think their ceiling is very high. Mm-hmm. But they also play a style that is difficult to play consistently. They rely on speed and athleticism, and it's one of those things that if you're going 100%, it can be devastating. If you're going 90%, you can lose a lot of games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there. I could go with a couple others, but I'm going to save one for Sunday for sure. I want to see where the voters put them for starters this week, and then we can come back to it. But I kind of like that segment because I think this year with parity, these answers could be all over the board.
Well, and that's how I feel with York. I don't think York is like a super, high level talented team, but they've got solid bigs.
Yes.
And they've got solid guards, and that's the kind of team you could see making a run because they don't make a lot of errors.
Yeah, I've got them 6 last week. I'm going to move them down, and it's not because I'm blown away by Wittenberg, what they did with Worcester. So I have Wittenberg behind York. Wittenberg's going to move ahead of them. I'm pretty impressed with what St. John's continues to do in that conference. I may move them ahead of York despite the fact St. John's has a loss. Whitewater and the rest of the WIAC have got me completely confused. So York's going to stay in my top 10. They're just going to come down a couple notches as I kind of just reevaluate them with some other teams. But you're right. They got the type of team and the type of things to make a run. They didn't play well against Christopher Newport. They were sporadic. They were inconsistent. That may be more aligned with what Christopher Newport was forcing them into. It was also a huge crowd at York. I think the hype has arrived, and I think they're now dealing with that spotlight to some degree. That said, they got a good win not playing their best against a scrappy and difficult Christopher Newport squad, which I said earlier, by the way, I didn't notice McFarland. I didn't notice Femi. Those guys combined for very few points. McFarland was 2 of 14 at one point in the game. Late, he may have taken another shot or two. They're not as great as they used to be, but they're still tough. And so
I also think
nothing against York.
York has done a great job all year of shutting down the best weapons on the opposing team.
That's true. Yes, that is true.
They did. That's how they beat Swarthmore. They got all those bigs into foul trouble.
Yep.
And they seem to know and focus in on what they have to do to shut down the other team, which is very devastating come March as well.
All right, so let's talk about the debate. This is one that you and I don't necessarily agree on. The irony is I have a feeling there were going to be some of these where one of us is just going to pick the counter argument just to make sure it's a debate, because we also agree on so much. But you go ahead. You get this one this week. I don't think it's going to be as much of a debate as you think it is, but go for it. And maybe I'll make it one.
I'm going to claim responsibility for part of that because I've been pushing so hard that Swarthmore is one of the top teams in the country. I have had them in my top 5 all season. I did drop them down to 10 this week with the loss to F&M. But I want to talk a little bit more about that as well. What are your thoughts now that you've started voting for Swarthmore?
Yeah, so I entered Swarthmore into the ballot last week at 22, completely forgetting the fact I was going to see them on Tuesday. I saw them at McDaniel. Listen, I'll say this much. Okay, they should have been in my top 25 sooner. Their resume didn't blow me away, to be blunt. And a loss to a York squad I wasn't sure of didn't help me. So I wasn't sure what to make. I also know what they lost from last year's team, and I just didn't know if they could make up for it. Wiley's a great player, but it's not all about Wiley. And you can shut down Wiley, and I think McDaniel actually did a decent job against Wiley on Tuesday night. But they've got other weapons. But, they got to win over Albertus Magnus, but Albertus Magnus that now doesn't seem as great as I thought they were. They have a win over Dickinson. Again, not a squad that is as good as I thought they were. The loss to York is of note. And then they beat Middlebury, but that was in that stretch where Middlebury didn't look like they could beat anybody. So I really didn't know what to make of Swarthmore. Now I've seen them, and we'll get into the F&M game after that. Listen, really good size inside, not deep inside. They've got good players coming off the bench, but not with the same size. That's where I find them a little susceptible. Did you lose me, Ryan?
Right. No, I'm here.
Oh, good.
And so
you had a look like Mia Smith had earlier that maybe we lost our connection with her. So they've got good size inside. They can go deep. They can go 10, 11 guys. They just take a drop off in terms of size. Their guard play is pretty solid. I don't know who's going to be on the floor at any given time. I think that's my only oddity with them is I can't trust who I'm going to see on the floor and how they play off of each other. But I like what I saw. From everything I've seen this season, and obviously everyone knows I've seen Whitman, I've seen Ohio Wesleyan in person. I've seen a lot of good teams. Swarthmore's in the top 25 conversation, but I cannot put them 10 in the top 10 right now, especially coming off that loss with F&M. And they weren't even going to get in my top 10 with a win over F&M.
Yeah. So I understand that. I also I recognize that there is, certainly as we saw with Franklin and Marshall this weekend, when they don't play well, it is not well.
Right.
If you look at that box score, they committed 25 turnovers, 30 personal fouls. They only shot 6 of 22 from the field. Clearly their worst game of the year. I can't imagine them playing a whole lot worse. They still only lost by 6 at F&M, which is a very difficult place to play. What I like, the 2 sophomore bigs, Zach Odell and Nate Schaefer, are really fundamentally sound guys and at a young age very disciplined. That's been the biggest weakness. What York exploited, there's 3 big guys on this team and that's it. So if you get 2 of them in foul trouble, you can do a lot of damage. However, those 3 big guys are generally very disciplined. Even against bigger players, they're good at keeping the hands straight up and you keeping the feet moving and doing what they need to do to make that work. So again, this is a year where who knows who's good and who isn't. Somebody can lose by 40 points one night and win by 40 the next. So I've still got a lot of confidence in them, and hopefully they'll keep proving me right, because I've sort of put my foot in my mouth if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it at it. The unforced turnovers was ugly. F&M, they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. And if Swarthmore is going to take control and be a dominant team, as you kind of hint at it being a top 10, then they needed to dispatch F&M on the road. And I said that earlier about New Jersey City at Ramapo, and I said that earlier about some other schools. That's a game they need. Now, it's a third of 3 of the week. I get that, but to some degree, that's part of the test. And I like parts. I do like parts of Swarthmore. I was impressed with parts that I saw out there. But at the same time, I mean, they destroyed McDaniel, so it's a little unfair for me, too, because how much. But they're still going 10-11 deep.
Yep.
They do take a size off when they lose, what's his name, at center. They lose some size inside. They still have some, but even their head coach is like, I need more size.
Yep.
So that makes me worried. And if Wiley has a night where he just wants to do it himself, and he's not prototypically like that, then nobody else knows what to do. So I'm a little nervous. I would say with the win, I was probably going to move him into the 15 to 20 range. With the loss, I got to debate it. I could have misread them and maybe moved them there still, and maybe they would have moved higher with a win. But I'm not willing to go top 10 right now. But yeah, who knows? Time will tell. Maybe they can use that game as something else. Quick other hit that you may have before we let you go, because unfortunately I see the clock is hit 4 o'clock, and I promised my family I would do something today, and I need to get to that. But in the meantime, I know there's a couple of other things you wanted to bring up.
I was wondering, we addressed the question of what we do with a team that has an injury that we're not sure is a season-ending injury. How do you approach a team? I was thinking specifically of Nichols. Yeah. Nichols is a team from a lower conference that's had some success the last couple years, really strong individual talents. They took an overtime loss last week that was not great, but they did it without their point guard, who's now missed 5 or 6 games. Yeah. I don't think we have word whether he's coming back or not, but how do you handle a team like that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've liked Nichols. I've had him in my top 25 for all but 1 week, I think, this year. I've liked them because of their point guard and one of their other guys that I think are some of the best in New England. Here's how I've usually done it, and this is kind of what I'm doing with Williams, though, to a different degree. I'll knock them for the loss, and I'll consider in my head, okay, they don't have them, so they're not as good as I think they are, but they're still a X team, and he comes back, and they're right back in this conversation. The more he misses, though, the less I give him credit. And so I start thinking to myself, listen, A, he's out. I don't think they're as good without him. B, they're showing they're not as good, possibly. Yep. I don't know for sure. And C, if he's out for the rest of the season, they're going to have to prove to me they're at this level without him. Does that make any sense? I don't know if I'm going convoluted there, but in my case, I'm probably dropping Nichols from my top 25.
Sure, and that's a perfectly fine spot. And they're one of those teams that's sort of on the knife's edge, is that they need all the talent they've got because they don't run super deep. So right. If they're missing one of those guys, it's going to show. And a lot like Lycoming, if they're at 100%, they're great. If they're at 90%, it could be dicey. So
in Williams's case, I dropped them, I think, to 11th. I'm seeing if I can look back. I am the 9th because Skadlov wasn't there. And I'm thinking, okay, you're going to have to find things. Now, I know you've got more than Skadlov, so I'm going to knock you down because you're not as good as I think you are, and then you can prove to me you are better than I am, and I'll move you back up. Well, of course, last week they go and win 2, including Wesleyan, and with everything else going on, I blew up my ballot. I moved them back up to 4th. Now I'm willing to move them right back into the 10 to 15 slot because, it's that this year. But there was a case where, I think I moved Williams down on my ballot 3 weeks in a row, and they had only lost 1 game. And it was because I'm looking, no Skadlov, I'm looking at the games. I don't like the results. I don't see someone stepping up, and they're losing viability to me of being as good as I thought they were.
Yeah, and we've had the debate on the message boards, on the top 25 board. It's Williams and Whitworth are the two that the eye test has really come into play. They've both lost probably their best players to season-ending injuries. Yeah. And while they're still strong, talented teams, and I would not put any win past either of them, they're not looking great at the moment. Yeah. And, without this sort of return of their best player, I've got a lot of questions about what they're going to be.
And I've had the same thought with Augustana with missing Warford. At first my thought was no big deal. They lost them last year, and they went all the way to the championship game. But the problem was they had a guy inside who was a senior last year who picked up that slack. He's not there this year, and I'm not exactly seeing from Augustana that they figured out the Warford conversation. And I've had them stuck at number 2 because I've had nowhere else to put them because I got to put someone at number 2. This week they will not be. Last week I thought about putting WashU ahead of them, but Augustana had beaten WashU. Well, now Augustana has more losses than WashU. That is less of a factor for me. So I'm going to downgrade Augustana, but I've had the same thought with them. Warford's not there. How much is this going to impact them on offense? They lost to Wheaton. They went 1-1 this week. They've now lost, 2 games in 2 weeks. I'm going to start bringing them back, and that's a different one where I gave them credit because in the past they did well with that injury, or in this case, Warford left last year for other reasons. This year it's different, and now I got to change my penny. So it literally depends on the team.
Well, yeah, and that's the one when you're debating. If I'm just picking one team that say you get this team on their best possible night, I may still put Augustana as the best team in the country because that talent is incredible.
True.
But they have not been playing up to what we saw towards the end of last year and what we were expecting out of this year. And at some point, that's got to weigh in. And I think this week, for you and me especially, but I think a number of voters, this is the week where they start to drop down unless they prove something.
Well, and another example of this, for example, if Ohio Wesleyan all of a sudden lost Nate Axelrod for the season, I'm no longer high on them. They've got good players, but Axelrod's the juice.
Yeah.
And so that's why it all depends on the player to me. So fascinating. Nice little topic there. I said at the beginning of the show, you don't have to indicate anything to me, but I know Skidmore's coming off my top 25 for sure. Nichols will be coming out. We just announced that. They're going to come off my top 25. St. Norbert's going to come out of my top 25 this week. There may be others. I haven't fully gone through it. But those 3 at least are going to take a hit. So that means 3 new teams like Emory and Henry, for me, will probably enter the top 25. But there's a lot of work to do, and we should point out, Ryan, I think, saw this. The top 25 won't come out until later this evening. It usually comes out in the next 2 hours, but it'll actually be in the next 5 hours before we see it, just due to a snafu behind the scenes, but we'll get cleared up. But just a little delay this week.
Yeah, and I was sort of lucky and unlucky in that all the losses happened to teams that were sort of between 5 and 15 for me. So I only had 2 that dropped off my ballot this week, but a lot of movement with teams going up and down and having to refigure things, and a lot of big games this week. So I think I may blow it up one more time next week. But
yeah, my problem is I have 3 losses in my top 5. I then have no losses 6 through 10. I have 2 or 3 more. I have 3 more losses in my 10 to 14, or actually 10 to 15. I've got 4 more losses. That's my problem. Is I got them in patches in odd places. They aren't, in a spot where I can adjust accordingly. But we'll see. By the way, real quick thought: Hamilton. How about a good weekend from them?
Yeah. So I was real down on Hamilton, and now I'm very confused.
Yep, I'm with you.
They are proven on the court that they are better than I thought they were.
Yes.
But I'm still not sure they're as good as everybody else thinks they are. So
yes. And to be honest, a Wesleyan kind of goes against Hamilton because I started getting high on Wesleyan because of how they were doing, and now they've taken some losses. I'm just waiting for Hamilton to do the same darn thing. I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'm going to ride them, and then they're going to take a couple losses. I'm going to be sitting there going, why did they do that? Why did I do that?
I had Wesleyan about 5 spots ahead of Hamilton, so now I've kind of brought them down and switched that around. And then I look at it and I go, but I still think Middlebury's better than both of these teams.
That's the other thing. I've got Middlebury sitting in my 25 hole because they lost 3 of 5 games. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, you're not playing like a top 25 team. But I really think they're better than everybody else. But I can't put them there right now.
Yeah, I've got all 3 of those sitting right on top of each other. Middlebury, Hamilton, Wesleyan, and a nice chunk right on my top. So.
It's a Nescac sandwich for you in your top 25. Hey, Ryan, I got to go. Thanks so much. This was fun. We'll keep polishing it up and do it on Sunday. Maybe by that point we come up with a good title. There was one other that got tweeted to us or emailed to. Oh, no, it was on Twitter. They said, how about the rundown? That's not bad either.
Yeah, I like pick and roll a lot. Pick and
roll's not bad.
That's my choice if we're voting.
All right, we'll talk about that one off air. Thanks, Ryan. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
All right, see you. Ryan Scott joining us on the City of Salem's Hoopsville Skype hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. We're going to sign off from that. We're not even taking a break. I got to get going. I did make a promise to the family that I would be doing something, and I have got to get going. We'll be back on the air Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and then back on the air Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. As well, of course, Thursday we will concentrate primarily on the East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West regions, and then, of course, Sunday primarily on the Northeast, Atlantic, South, and Central regions. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. If you're listening to this live, looking forward to seeing the podcast later. It will be a little bit delayed, but we will get that out this evening. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show on this special Monday edition. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Hope we'll try this a couple more times this week or this season as well. But don't forget, back to our normal schedule for the next few shows, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks to the WBCA, NABC for their help, and, of course, D3Hoops.com for their support. Also want to thank our guest today, Mia Smith from Illinois Wesleyan. Of course, want to thank their sports information staff and the technical staff to help Coach Smith get back up on Skype. And also want to thank Tony Wingen, the head coach at Carnegie Mellon, and the sports information staff at that school as well. And, of course, the NABC for their support of the Coach's Corner, and Charlie Brock for his efforts as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you again on Thursday evening. Good night, everybody.